welcome. As you might know by now, each Sunday I am releasing a new video, something on the topic of attachment styles, healing attachment styles, and rediscovering that sense of self. But today I have been asked to create a video over on my Instagram. I've been asked to create a video on healing avoidant attachment, which I'm really pleased about, because sometimes I feel like I've got my theories as to why it perhaps doesn't get as much airtime as an anxious attachment. But anyway, that's just what I sometimes think or feel. But I think this is a really, really important topic to cover today. I'm going to be giving 5 approaches that if you've got to, it's got to be about the combination of these approaches. I just really want to be clear on that. But with these different approaches, if you're someone who tends to have an avoidant tendency, or you have some tendencies to be avoidant when it comes to your relationships and intimacy, then definitely you're going to want to check out these 5 elements and see what you're already doing, what you'd like to be doing more of or less of, and you can sort of figure that out as we go. I really encourage you to just notice as I'm talking which parts speak to you, which parts do you think, I know I need to work on that, or which parts do you think, no, I'm doing that actually quite well, I'm really struggling with that. That's what can tend to happen. So we will definitely go through that. Something I really want to, the 5 parts, something I do want to just say is you can heal an avoidant attachment style. You can become more secure. You really can. It's just so key that we have that conversation, because I know what it's like to keep falling back into these same patterns, and it can be so disheartening. You know, you feel like you're doing really well. You've been reading all of the books. You've been doing all of the things that you've been trying to do to be able to have more meaningful, healthy relationships. And you're probably even seeing some great results. And then something happens where out of nowhere, it's like this sabotage, or just suddenly it's like, how am I back here? You can see that you've pushed someone away, or you've started a fight, or you've cancelled a date that you kind of wanted to go on, whatever it is for you. That, that avoidant attachment can show up in so many ways. And it's key for you to know, and like I say, we'll talk through different ways that you can get started, that you can become more secure and feel safer and enjoy closeness and intimacy and relying on others, which are the kind of things that sometimes those with avoidant tendencies can struggle with. If you're really new to attachment styles and avoidant attachment, and you're just diving in, I do have another video that you can watch for more information on avoidant attachment style, because like I say, with today, I'm really just focusing in on how do we heal this, how do we begin to move away from those avoidant tendencies, or be with them in a new way, so that we don't act on them so much, so that we can feel more secure, because that's what we want, right? And I will just say, for those of you that are really diving into this information and you're very, very committed to accessing that inner secure self and using that to change your world, to change your relationships, then please do check out Follow Your Fire, my online membership for attachment styles and rediscovering yourself, because in there you get community, education, embodiment practice, up-to-date skills and methods, and how to go from insecure to secure. And we know that within community, we see better results. So definitely check out Follow Your Fire. It's important that you know that you're not alone. It's an online monthly membership. You can come in, you can get to know us, see what it's all about. And if it's not for you, you can leave at any time. That's your boundary. So check that out in the link below. There's just a couple of myths I want to talk to you about when it comes to an avoidant attachment, because I just think it's really important that we touch on this. If you're here and you are relating to an avoidant attachment style, of those kind of characteristics and behaviors, it's not who you are, but that they come out when you're activated and triggered in intimacy and relationships, then I just think it's really important that we cover this. And that is that people with an avoidant attachment style are not villains. I feel really strongly that they can be painted out. We can be painted out, because I have avoidant tendencies myself, to be the villain, to be the bad one. And it's not the case. It comes from this idea, I think, of it seeming like this person doesn't care, or they're not interested, or they've got no feelings. And that's really not the case. This is very much protective strategies to stay safe, to try and avoid abandonment, rejection, and pain. And that tends to be by keeping people at arm's length, by keeping feelings in, by preventing that intimacy. And it can seem on the outside quite cold and like there's no feelings, but as you'll see in something that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, that's just not true. So they're not the bad guy. There are no good guys, bad guys. It's really important that we understand that, because if you're looking at yourself as being someone who has no feelings and doesn't care and is the bad one, it's already going to be making it really difficult to move forward with change. The other myth is that people with an avoidant attachment don't get help. I mean, look, you're here. I'm guessing since you're watching this video, there's something in avoidant attachment styles that you relate to, and you're here. So it's not true that they don't get help. It might be true that they might be less likely to reach out or do this kind of work than someone with an anxious attachment. I tend to think that's because with anxious attachment, it's very, very urgent, and it's this sense of wanting to fix stuff, and I want to fix it now, and it's very painful. It's not to dismiss the pain involved with the avoidant tendencies, absolutely not, especially the more aware you become of your avoidant tendencies, because in my experience with working with my clients, it does often tend to be the case that they'll come to me with an anxious attachment in terms of their words and what they want to work on. And we very quickly see, there's a lot of avoidance strategies here as well, so it's very interesting that sometimes as you do that work, it's like an onion, you pull back these layers. And that was actually the experience for me personally as well, pulling back these layers of an anxious attachment and being like, hold on a second, there's a lot of avoidance going on here as well. So I just wanted to put that out there because I think it's really important to discuss this stuff. So I'm going to outline 5 elements that contribute to correcting avoidant attachment tendencies. I want you to remember that this is a process. It is a combination of these different approaches that are really going to help you to feel and experience the kind of change that you are looking for and craving. It's like a puzzle. We put these pieces together, and then we really start to identify and witness these incredible shifts. I really mean it. The more specific we can be, the more committed we are to these different approaches and bringing them into our daily lives. That's when we really, really start to see the shifts in real time, when we are triggered in our relationships and we feel that urge to avoid or to push away. With a combination of these approaches, we're going to be more likely to give ourselves that best shot of actually surrendering. And this time I'm going to allow myself to experience this relationship. I'm going to allow myself to be with this discomfort, and I'm going to allow myself to be kind to myself without beating myself up. So there's a little tip or a little hint, I should say, of what's coming up. But see if you can feel into what you're already practicing well as what you might want to be doing a little bit more of or a little bit less of. Take some notes. If you want more information on anything that I talk about as I talk about these 5 approaches, please leave a comment, because that's really going to let me know what more content or what type of content you want. And it might be that I can create a whole video on just that topic or direct you to something that I've already created. So do let me know what speaks to you as I'm talking. And I just love to hear from you as well, to be honest. Right, so I'm going to share with you, I'm going to read from here, these 5 tips. So one of the first methods to be looking at when it comes to healing attachment wounds is self-compassion. How compassionate you are towards yourself without judgment and with kindness during painful times, during times when you become activated or deactivated, I should say in this case, during times when you see yourself acting out old patterns. It's really important that you meet yourself with kindness and compassion throughout this process. I truly believe that when you can start to have kinder language with yourself, we naturally tend to start behaving in a more secure, aligned way anyway. So there's just that beautiful ripple effect. When I'm talking about self-compassion here as well, you know, with my clients, I'm looking at, it's not useful to be blaming yourself for past situations, or to be blaming yourself or criticizing yourself about where you have been in the past. So it's really about resisting the judgment on that, resisting giving yourself a hard time for your tendencies, and perhaps starting to see if you can understand how it is that you have got here and why it is that these are your natural responses. These are coping strategies. And when we can start to meet that with understanding instead of like hatred or self-neglect, it's really, really powerful for creating more change and helping us to face forward. You're able to observe your experience with understanding, and that makes space for movement. It tends to be when we're more compassionate, we create space to move forward. Whereas when we're giving ourselves that hard time, it really kind of makes us just smaller and contract and more stuck in the mud, stuck where we are. So acceptance and love is what you need for yourself. To offer yourself that kind of compassion is really going to just change how you feel in that moment. And when we can tend to open ourselves up in that way, something inside of us shifts, something inside of us opens up, and that opens us up to intimacy, closeness, relationships, not just with ourselves, but with others as well. Next, what I like to do, I say next, this isn't actually really in any particular order because it really does depend on the person that's in front of me. But usually something that's very, very useful and powerful when working with an avoidant attachment style is starting to collect new evidence using memory and using your imagination. So often with an avoidant attachment, it's very likely that you are expecting rejection, expecting to be let down, expecting that others want too much from you and they want to take your freedom. There's very much like certain expectations that can flood your mind. So what's really, really useful is to start collecting evidence of where this is not true. Start collecting evidence or imagining what it would feel like if these thoughts that you have were not true. So, for example, if you are always expecting rejection, can you begin to start to open your mind and your imagination to what it might feel like? And when you have actually had those experiences, what it feels like to not experience rejection. Can you see that actually there's times where you have been accepted? Can you imagine what it might be like to be accepted? And what you're doing there is you're just starting to open your mind a little bit, just starting to allow in this new information. And when we can do that, that voice that says, this always happens, this is all that happens, it's just more likely we can turn it down and it takes its power away. And over time, you're going to catch yourself quicker, or you're even going to have brand new thoughts. You're not just going to be expecting rejection or thinking that you're going to be let down, because you've built up so much evidence and so much trust that relationships don't have to be that way. Next, an element that I would be working with you around is regulating. And this is something we're diving deep into inside Follow Your Fire, my membership. So make sure you check that out. But when you are adopting strategies, avoidance strategies, it's because you're not as regulated as you might seem. So what I mean by that is, with avoidant tendencies, and this can be in your experience or seeing someone with avoidant tendencies, it can seem like, I'm not that bothered, I don't care, because that might be the internal dialogue, or the belief is that I'm not bothered, I don't care, I don't feel anything. And it can seem like that on the outside. The person can seem, or you can seem, very, very calm. What we know, though, is in fact on the inside, it's high stress responses. We see this in research. People who have been monitored, they may seem calm on the outside, but on the inside, we can really see that change in stress levels. So stress hormones are very much activated. So yes, from the outside, it might seem like there's calmness, but it doesn't tend to be what's happening on the inside. So in those moments when you are triggered and when those strategies are coming out, we would want to be regulating, just like we would with anxiety. You know, how can you regulate yourself to bring back that state of safety, that state of being present in the here and now, so that you're more open to connection, closeness, intimacy, being with yourself, speaking about your emotions, all of those kind of things that can be difficult when your avoidant attachment style is in control. Next up, and this might be, don't know, but might be one of my favorite things to do with clients, because I think it's really, really powerful when we start to override our thoughts and our fears with action, because that's how we really, really experience like confidence, is when we actually start to put this stuff into action. But it has to be in a safe way. So with this one, we're talking about increasing tolerance, and I'm talking about increasing the tolerance that you have for closeness and intimacy, and being open with another person, with your partner. It's usually with a partner that we're doing this work around, but not always. So what I would say here, in order to increase that tolerance, we don't want to just go in and overwhelm and panic you and, you know, get you to open up about something that just feels overwhelming, or to have that kind of closeness with someone. So you can use a hierarchy approach here to build your tolerance. So this is something if I was working with you, we would really go through together and figure out, when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to closeness, when does it feel so vulnerable that perhaps you do start to act out or go into that self-destruct? When does it feel so vulnerable? And we would really identify that as being one of those places where the tolerance is like intolerable, basically, to have that kind of closeness, that kind of openness. So what we're then going to look at is, where does it feel a bit easier? Okay, I had to cut there because I completely lost myself. But what we would then do is, on the flip side, we would look at, okay, and where does it feel bearable? Where does it feel like, actually, you know, I feel like I could put myself in this space without it feeling too overwhelming, but it does feel like it's a stretch when it comes to closeness. There is some discomfort, because we want you to be able to start to tolerate that discomfort without putting in those strategies, without suddenly becoming like frustrated and pushing someone away and putting that distance in. So there will be some discomfort, but you can stay in control of yourself, and you're the leader. You're the leader of your love life in that moment. So that hierarchy approach to increasing your tolerance it's actually quite fun to work through. We can experiment. It doesn't have to all be doom and gloom. And it's in this time that, whether it's in courses or whether it's in one-to-one work with me, that you really are celebrating yourself, where you're like, I did this. I can't, like, it's planned, you know. We're like, right, we're going to put you into this situation, never overwhelming. I've got to make that really clear. It's like this sense of achievement, and then we repeat it, you know, and then to the point where that's just comfortable, and it gets to the point where it's like, I can just do this. I can do this. So it's really powerful. As you can probably tell, I love this approach when it comes to healing avoidant wounds. And lastly, I say one of the discussions that I just think is really important to have when it comes to healing avoidant attachment is sometimes what can happen is through no fault of your own, you can mute or suppress your experiences, your emotions. You might feel like I feel quite numb. I can't remember a lot of stuff from my childhood. I'm sure everything was fine and great and happy, and it can be quite confusing. So here, what I would suggest is being open to deeper work. I really believe that sometimes we just need that other person to be with us, to help us to safely open up, to start to experience our emotions. And there's so many incredible approaches that I'd love to put into a video, but that's not what I do. That's my one-to-one work. They're my private containers where I work with people. These videos are like excellent tips, but that actual work would not even be safe to just put into a video and say, hey, go and do this yourself. So really, it's about that being open to deeper work. So you can access feelings of resentment and anger and sadness in a safe environment with a professional to guide you and support you through this process. So whether that is in a child work or somatic work, it's talk therapy, it's really, really useful for you to understand, what is my relationship with these emotions? Why is it difficult for me to feel them? Or why do I suddenly become overwhelmed by them to the point where then I shut down and I lose myself for a day or 2 days? Or on the flip side, I become so hyper vigilant to things. But usually with avoidance, we're looking at that shutdown. So it's important to be open to that deeper work, to have someone to go through this process with you. You don't have to worry, because here's the truth with avoidant attachment: it can be difficult to think about going too deep or accessing stuff when I don't quite know what led me here anyway. So you don't have to worry about going too deep. This is why you need to do your research about your coach first, or whoever you work with, is because you want a specialist coach or therapist who will understand how to support an avoidant attachment. Because sometimes, like, too much too soon isn't helpful. Asking you loads and loads of questions isn't helpful for you to get the results that you're looking for, the answers that you're looking for. There's a real way to work with attachment styles. So it's important that you are getting yourself the right education and the right help. So be open to that deeper work. That's the fifth one. It's not quite a strategy, but it is food for thought. And we need that as well when it comes to just figuring out, where am I going next? What's next for me? And I am all about guiding my clients to becoming more in touch with their inner self, their intuition. I believe that that is when we are more secure. The same way that we got shut down in terms of our sense of self and our sense of security, that also happens with intuition. So for me, it's really important that you are able to start answering your own questions. So just reflect on what you have just listened to. If you're still here watching this, you are committed. If you have made it this far, you are committed to this work and to yourself. So well done. I fully respect you for that. Please do check out the membership. If you're still here and you're not in the membership already, I'm pretty certain it's ideal for you. So yeah, just see if you can feel from what Carly-Ann has said today, what do I need to be with? What's my next step? What do I need to do more of or less of, like I said? But I hope that that was useful for you. Well done for being here. I really mean it. Do not forget, you're enough, you're lovable, you are so worthy, and you're irreplaceable.